Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. We take your sources, we dig deep, and pull out the most important nuggets for you, giving you those aha moments, without all the information overload. Today, we're diving into a federal civil complaint, and it brings to light some really, really alarming allegations within the family court system. And this isn't just about one family's story.
No, definitely not.
It really speaks to bigger issues, issues of justice, fairness, trust in the system itself, including some really serious claims about, political retaliation and how the system might be weaponized.
Precisely. Our mission today is really to unpack the claims in one specific document. Jeffrey G. Haskell versus B.J. Fadem, Marcia Clark, and Nicole Marie Ford. We're going to look at how specific family court rules, practices are alleged to contribute to abuse, manipulation, maybe even corruption. Especially, like you said, when maybe personal or political biases might be involved.
Yeah, we're talking claims of federal civil rights violations, conspiracy fraud, and they're demanding a jury trial. It's a really compelling look at how a system that's supposed to protect can, according to these allegations, become a source of just immense anguish.
Let's unpack this. Okay, so let's set the stage. The plaintiff, Jeffrey G. Haskell. The complaint says after his divorce back in 2011, he had a pretty successful co-parenting relationship. Son and daughter, 8 years. His custody time started out significant, like 70%, then it shifted a bit to 55-45.
Right, a fairly standard kind of evolution. But then, allegedly, it just plummeted dramatically, down to 0%. That's a huge shift. And the complaint points to a very specific turning point, June 2019. And it alleges political bias was, a key factor in what happened next.
Right. This is where it gets really interesting. According to the filing, he was at a restaurant with his son. They were talking about, athletics, but also notably President Trump. And this conversation was apparently overheard, recorded on video by acquaintances of his ex-wife, and then posted on social media. Went viral. And that's identified as the trigger. The complaint asserts his ex-wife's attorney used that video, the one about Trump, to get a TTRO, a temporary restraining order.
Okay. What exactly is a TTRO, quickly?
Well, TTROs can be issued really fast, often ex parte, meaning without the other side even there. They can just drastically change custody, basically offering immediate protection or restriction, sometimes based just on one side's initial claims.
So this TTRO effectively cut Haskell off from his kids.
That's the allegation. And it really highlights how fast an informal dispute, especially one with this alleged political angle, can just blow up into a huge legal fight.
So once the courts got involved, the complaint brings in two key players, B.J. Fadem, appointed as minors counsel.
Right, that's an attorney appointed by the court, theoretically to represent the child's best interest.
And Marcia Clark, a privately hired reunification therapist.
Yes, and her alleged rate was pretty hefty, $333 an hour.
Wow.
And the allegations here are critical, that their roles shifted. They weren't just facilitating things, they were allegedly controlling visitation, actively obstructing Haskell's access, laying the groundwork, the complaint says, for some deeply disturbing actions, all while, potentially racking up significant fees.
And the complaint gets into some really concerning claims here, focusing on alleged abuse within the system. January 2020, Clark allegedly told Haskell his son was suicidal.
Yeah, and this supposedly led to Haskell being involuntarily committed, put in a psychiatric facility for a day. But crucially, the complaint says no evidence, no verification, nothing was ever provided for that claim. And Clark, who would be a mandated reporter in California, allegedly didn't report this supposed suicidality to, Child Protective Services or the police.
That's a serious allegation, fabricating a crisis like that.
It's profound, yeah. The distress that would cause a parent.
And then it didn't stop there. Mid-2020, he claims he was told his daughter was self-mutilating.
Right? Same pattern, just told this verbally. No medical reports, no second opinions, no photos, nothing concrete.
So the complaint just flat out says these were made-up stories fabricated by Fadem and Clark.
It does. Squarely asserts that.
Oh.
Which, immediately makes you ask, why? What would be the motive for making up things like that?
Yeah.
About children?
And the alleged motive is, it's chilling. To antagonize Haskell, destabilize him, drag out the custody fight, and, importantly, generate fees. Lots of fees.
Attorney fees, therapist fees.
Paid by Haskell, his family, even Santa Clara County taxpayers, according to the complaint.
Yeah, if that's true, it's a really profound accusation. Weaponizing a child's well-being just to keep the litigation machine running. It suggests a system meant to protect could actually profit from conflict, from distress.
Perpetuating that distress against the parent, maybe the kids too.
Exactly. It goes beyond just, simple greed. It points to maybe a design flaw in the system itself, where the financial incentives might accidentally reward conflict, not resolution, trapping families.
Yeah, it really makes you question if the structure always prioritizes the child's welfare.
Or if it can sometimes feed this cycle of costly interventions.
Okay, let's shift to the procedural side. Because the complaint argues court practices themselves open the door to problems. There was this hearing, August 17, 2021. Haskell was trying to get unsupervised visitation back. What's the critical point here?
The critical point: no court reporter, no official record of what was said in that hearing.
That seems
Huge significant.
Unlike most courtrooms where everything's recorded, maybe there's a jury. Family court can sometimes be less transparent. This lack of a record, lack of maybe public oversight, creates a real vulnerability. It makes it incredibly hard to challenge a decision later. Justice becomes kind of opaque.
And at this hearing, Judge Vanessa Zecker, who isn't a defendant because of judicial immunity, we should mention that.
Right, we'll get back to that immunity aspect.
Yeah.
She reportedly chastised Haskell, said he wasn't acknowledging his daughter was transitioning to become a boy, and wasn't respecting her wish to be called Alex instead of Faith. Now wait, had this come up before? In court papers? Was the father told about this?
The complaint alleges no. He'd never heard about it before that moment. It was apparently the judge's only topic in that hearing. And here's a really critical detail. The complaint claims the judge knew about this supposed transition before the father did. It alleges Fadem, the minor's counsel, had an ex parte communication with Judge Zicker.
A private chat, off the record.
Exactly. Which is generally a huge no-no. It denies the other side, Haskell in this case, the chance to even know what was said, let alone respond. The complaint alleges Fadem told the judge to bring this up, but nothing about it was filed officially before she said it in court.
Wow. So the judge then orders him to use the name Alex, use male pronouns, reportedly saying, because I sit in this big black chair and I can.
Yeah. Chilling, if true. And it points directly to those due process violation claims. It's exactly that kind of alleged, unrecorded, behind-the-scenes influence that the complaint says just destroyed fairness here.
Absolutely. I mean, what happens to a family when huge decisions are based on information that just sort of appears?
Right, with no formal vetting, no chance to address it, and crucially, no record to appeal from. It suggests a real lack of impartial adjudication.
And even though Haskell achieved sobriety for a year, which the complaint says Fadem had promised would lead to unsupervised visits.
That didn't happen. The complaint alleges Fadem and Clark just reneged. They still only allowed supervised visits, still at Clark's $333 an hour rate.
And he paid for this.
Reportedly paid $11,000 for Clark's services. But the complaint alleges no therapeutic plan was ever provided. No actual custody time was restored.
Which brings us back to this term reunification therapy. The complaint raises serious concerns about that, too, alleging Clark called herself that, but the term itself, well, it has no professional designation or set training.
It's highly controversial, that whole field. And what's really interesting here is that California did act on this kind of thing. They passed Peake's Law, effective January 1st, 2024. It bans practices similar to what Clark allegedly did.
So a legislative reaction to this type of alleged misconduct.
Seems like it. A reaction to situations impacting families, much like this one described here. It kind of reinforces the complaint's idea that maybe these actions were driven by financial gain, a form of systemic abuse, as the complaint frames it.
Okay, so after that really crucial August 2021 hearing, things take another turn. Haskell's sister, Julie Haskell, she apparently started looking into B.J. Fadem.
Yes, she allegedly discovered that B.J. Fadem had transitioned from female, Barbara, to male, B.J. Now, the complaint claims Fadem never disclosed this, and it argues this becomes relevant because Fadem then allegedly declared Haskell's young daughter also wanted to transition. Without any medical report, no expert opinion cited, just declared it.
So the implication is a potential personal bias.
That's the implication raised in the complaint, that Fadem's personal experience might have influenced professional judgment here, contributing to this narrative of alleged manipulation, maybe even political motivation to target Haskell.
And then things escalated legally, but against Aunt Julie.
Yeah. Fadem, through his own attorney, Nicole Ford, who's also a defendant, filed a civil harassment petition against Julie. This was June 2022, reportedly because of her social media posts criticizing Fadem.
Okay, so that's Fadem acting personally, suing her for harassment.
Right. But then, in August 2022, Fadem, acting in his official capacity as minor's counsel, allegedly got another TTRO, This one to keep Aunt Julie away from the children themselves.
Wait, so he personally has a restraining order against her, and then as the kid's lawyer, he gets one to keep her from the kids.
That's the allegation. A clear conflict of interest, the complaint argues. How could Fadem impartially decide if the kids should see their aunt when he's personally in a legal fight with her? It cites a specific California Rule of Court, 5.24008, about conflicts of interest, alleging a procedural safeguard was just ignored.
This story just keeps getting darker. It leads up to an incident in July 2022. The complaint describes Haskell becoming extremely agitated. Clark allegedly insisted he call his daughter Alex for an upcoming visit. He canceled the session, checked into a motel, and the complaint states he attempted suicide over several days.
It really speaks to the level of distress, the alleged psychological pressure he was under.
Then this leads to a really harrowing event. July 29th at Clark's office. Haskell, described as being in a mental health crisis, intoxicated, shows up early for a solo session.
And he brings a gun. One he believed was unloaded. The complaint calls it a ghost gun.
An untraceable firearm, right, assembled from parts.
Typically, yes. Bullets allegedly spilled from his pocket. He put the gun down, asked Clark to call his son, then told her to call the police, and he was arrested.
What does the complaint allege happened next regarding the police statements after this?
It alleges false statements were made. Clark supposedly told police Haskell was upset because his daughter was transgender.
But Haskell claims.
He claims he was upset about the alleged lies, about being denied access to his kids, the constant pressure. The complaint also alleges Clark falsely claimed he threatened her and another minor client who was there, identified as KF, with the gun.
And Fadem, is he involved in the aftermath here?
Yes. The complaint alleges Fadem later made a false statement under oath. This was in a March 2024 court hearing, testifying that Haskell first came to Fadem's office with the ghost gun, trying to kill him, before going to Clark's office.
Which Haskell denies.
The complaint alleges this is perjury, a complete fabrication to make things look worse.
And there's another pretty alarming allegation involving Nicole Ford, Fadem's attorney.
Yeah, this is a critical detail. 2 days after the gun incident, Ford allegedly contacted the parents of KF. That's a minor client supposedly threatened. Ford reportedly offered to be reappointed as KF's minors counsel again, for free.
Okay.
But then, the complaint alleges she revealed confidential privileged information in an email, trying to influence KF's potential testimony about the gun incident.
So basically witness tampering.
That's the essence of the allegation.
Yeah.
Witness tampering, more alleged manipulation in this already incredibly tangled situation.
Okay, let's fast forward. February 2024. Something big changes. Haskell's family finds his daughter's TikTok account. And this seems to be a turning point in uncovering the alleged fraud.
It's presented as really key evidence, yes. The complaint states the TikTok account showed her given name, Faith, used share pronouns, had photos of what it describes as a feminine teenage girl, all directly contradicting this Alex narrative.
Which alerted Haskell, the complaint says, to the lie and the fraud that was allegedly perpetrated on the court and on him, reinforcing that claim of intentional deception.
Exactly.
So what happened to the TikTok account once it was found and presumably people were notified?
Swift action, according to the complaint. A news reporter allegedly emailed a link to the account to Fadem and also to Judge Zecker. Within a day, the account was taken down, gone.
And Judge Zecker.
Judge Zecker, who the complaint alleges misled the court about this whole transition thing. She retired shortly after this TikTok discovery came to light. Became a private judge for JAM as Manos Judicial Arbitration and Mediation Services.
Wow, okay. Let's talk consequences. The gun incident obviously had huge consequences for Haskell.
Severe consequences. He ended up taking what the complaint calls a coercive plea deal. Served almost 2 years in jail. The complaint alleges his public defender pressured him into it, refused to challenge Marcia Clark's credibility.
And losing his right to vote.
Yes, the complaint specifically mentions he lost his right to vote. Couldn't vote for President Trump in 2024.
Which brings that political retaliation claim right into the tangible consequences he faced.
Directly. And it wasn't just him. Remember KF, the minor client allegedly threatened.
Right. What about KF?
Well, KF's father apparently later determined that Clark's statement to police about KF being threatened was false. He included this in his victim impact statement, which, under California's Marzi's law, should be considered at sentencing. Victims have rights, including that right.
But the complaint alleges his statement wasn't considered at Haskell's sentencing. Another alleged procedural failure. Another person impacted by the alleged falsehoods.
So, walking through all these details from the Haskell complaint, it really forces you to step back and look at the bigger picture, doesn't it? These aren't just isolated claims. They raise fundamental questions about how family court actually operates, the potential for, well, systemic abuse.
Absolutely. Let's try to unpack some of those systemic issues the complaint brings up. First, that no reporter, no jury aspect we touched on.
Right. No court reporter at that key hearing meant no official record.
Exactly. And family courts often don't have juries. So you lack that immediate record and you lack that community check that a jury provides. It creates this vulnerability. It makes it incredibly hard to challenge decisions, hard to expose potential misconduct. Justice can become kind of hidden.
Which brings us back to judicial immunity. Judge Zetcher isn't a defendant because of it. Correct. Absolute judicial immunity protects judges from lawsuits for their official actions. The idea is to let them make tough calls without fear of being sued personally. But the flip side, as alleged here, is that even if there's perceived misconduct, the judge often can't be held directly accountable in a civil suit, which must feel incredibly frustrating for litigants.
Yeah, a profound lack of direct accountability, it seems. And that leads right into the danger of those alleged ex parte communications, those secret, off-the-record chats, like Fidos allegedly telling the judge what to say about the daughter's transition.
Exactly. When a judge makes decisions or pronouncements based on things not formally argued in court, things the other side doesn't even know about,
Yeah.
it just shreds due process. The parent has no fair chance to respond, they feel blindsided, and it completely erodes trust in the impartiality of the process, makes the system ripe for potential manipulation.
And then the alleged conflicts of interest with Fadem, those seem crucial to the abuse allegations.
Yeah, that's a significant point. The complaint highlights the alleged personal TTRO against Aunt Julie versus his professional duty as minor's counsel, and also the alleged failure to disclose his own transition when the daughter's supposed transition became such a central contested issue. The complaint cites a specific California rule that says should have meant appointing someone else. When professionals meant to protect kids allegedly have these personal conflicts, it just breeds distrust, risks unfair outcomes.
And all of that feeds into maybe the most disturbing core allegation, the monetization of conflict.
Yeah.
That this was all dragged out for money, perpetuating alleged abuse for profit.
Yes, that's a recurring theme in the complaint, that the defendants allegedly fabricated crises, the suicidal son, the self-harming daughter, the transition, specifically to prolong the litigation, generate fees from the parents, from the county. It's a devastating accusation, transforming a system meant to resolve conflict into one that allegedly profits from it. Trapping families, weaponizing their distress for money. It's abuse of the system itself, allegedly.
And related to the fees, the complaint actually asks the court to formally declare something specific, right? Declaratory relief.
That's right. It wants the court to state, formally, that parents can't be denied contact with their kids just because they can't afford therapist fees, especially if they're poor or indigent. It frames it as an equal protection issue, an excessive penalty, raising really big questions about fairness and access to justice based on how much money you have.
Yeah. And finally, let's circle back to that politically charged claim. The one within the federal civil rights claim, that's a major focus here.
Right. The specific allegation that Haskell was discriminated against because he was identified as belonging to the Trump supporter class. That this political animus allegedly motivated the defendants and even the judge.
And just to be clear, we're reporting what's in the document. We're not endorsing the viewpoint.
Absolutely, we're just reporting the claim. But it raises profound questions, doesn't it? Can political bias creep into family court decisions?
Yeah.
Could it potentially deny people equal protection under the law, regardless of their politics? It's a very, very serious charge about the system's impartiality and fairness. And it links directly back to those claims of political retaliation and systemic abuse running through the complaint.
So this deep dive into the Haskell civil complaint, wow. It really paints a concerning picture. The challenges people can face, the immense power held by minors' counsel, therapists, judges, and the devastating impact these alleged abuses can have. It describes a system that's meant for protection potentially turning into one causing deep harm, especially when things like alleged political bias or financial motives might enter the picture.
It truly forces us to ask, beyond just this specific case, how does this system with things like judicial immunity, private therapy arrangements, these complex fee structures, how does it genuinely guarantee transparency? How does it ensure accountability? Especially when you have these really serious allegations of fabricated crises, of political retaliation. And fundamentally, how does it consistently uphold the genuine best interests of children and families when faced with claims like these?
Those are the critical questions, definitely.
They really challenge us to think about the very foundations of family justice.
A lot to think about indeed. We hope this deep dive has given you, our listener, a clearer, maybe more nuanced look at the very serious allegations in this specific civil complaint, and maybe spark some thought about the vital questions they raise about the family court system for everyone involved.